Matthew 4 verses 1 through 11 is the story of Jesus being led into the wilderness. So let's read it together. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted there by the devil. For 40 days and 40 nights he fasted and became very hungry. During that time, the devil came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread." But Jesus told him, "No, the scriptures say people do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city, Jerusalem, to the highest point of the temple, and said, "If you are the Son of God, jump off. For the scriptures say he will order his angels to protect you, and they will hold you up with their hands, so you won't even hurt your foot on a stone." Verse 7, Jesus responded, "The scriptures also say you must not test the Lord your God." Next, the devil took him to the peak of a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. "I will give it all to you," he said, "if you will kneel down and worship me." "Get out of here, Satan," Jesus told him, "for the scriptures say you must worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil went away, and angels came and took care of Jesus. And I'm going to park it right there for a little bit, just for sake of catching you up. If you missed last week's sermon, really, I talked about this. First off, you know, that the wilderness represents hard times in our life, represents valleys, represents storms, represents struggles, represents trials, represents even temptation, seasons of temptation in our life. And I think oftentimes we look at those things subconsciously as, well, the devil did this to me. The devil brought this into my life, right? This happened to me because of sin or this. But the Holy Spirit held the hand of Jesus and walked him literally into this great time of trial, this great time of temptation and struggle in his life. And so the first point that I brought to your attention and I want to bring back to your remembrance is that many times, whether you like it or not, theologically, God is saying, "Hey, I need you to come with me into something right now." And it's not going to be easy. In fact, this is the life that we're called to so many times. Wasn't that the apostles? He literally flipped their lives upside down. He really did. Peter was away from his wife for 3 years in large part. And Jesus asked him to do it. And then he said things like, "Hey, if you're not willing to leave mother and father and your spouse and brother and sister for me, then you are not worthy to follow me." Hard words. He asked a lot, right? He asked a lot of people who followed him. He asked a lot. And in this case, it's no different. At times, not all the time, but at times, God will ask a lot of you. And it's in those times where, make no mistake, you're headed or you're in the midst of a valley in your life. Well, then I said, okay, all right, well, all that being said, we understand now God will bring us into hard times in our life. Well, what is a wilderness? And I really just gave you one aspect of what the wilderness was. And I told you it's a place of isolation, right? Just look at it. Logically. It's a place of isolation. You go into the desert, well, there's not going to be a lot of people there, okay? They don't want to be there. It's a place where people don't want to go, right? So you're in large part going to be at least somewhat, to some extent, isolated from the support of people. Now, it doesn't mean no support, but and sometimes it means just a little bit. Sometimes it means none at all. It's different for everybody, and it's different even for individuals as seasons come and seasons go. There will be various levels of support, but make no mistake, when you go into the hard times, a lot of times, you'll feel isolated. And in that, you will have to learn to live off of the very presence of God himself only. You will not be able to be propped up by people. Your emotions, your intellect, your ego will have to die in the wilderness. And that is God's intent. So that brings us all up to speed. Number 2 about the wilderness. an aspect of the wilderness that I want to draw your attention to. And what does that mean for us? And this is probably all we're going to get through this morning. If we get through this, is this idea. A wilderness is a place that lacks abundance. Wilderness is a place that lacks abundance, right? That just makes sense. Like it doesn't, so you go in, the wilderness of the Bible is a desert place, right? When it talks about the wilderness, it is always referring to a place of desolation, a place where there is not, so it's not talking about the Amazon, the jungle wilderness, right? The Bible typology here is a desert place. This is the type of place that Jesus went into, a desert place, right? Where there wasn't abundance around him. It lacked many things. You see rocks, you see heat, you see dryness, you see death, you see dust, right? Much like the picture up on the screen. This is what you expect to see physically in a wilderness place, right? As a person, though, what will you experience in this time? Well, you're going to feel hunger, right? Because there's not an abundance of food around you. Now, obviously, we're spiritualizing this in our life, but we're going to feel hunger. We're going to thirst. The Bible talks about hungering and thirsting over and over and over and over again, even at the well, the woman at the Samaritan woman, right? That a whole interaction between Jesus and her was based upon one physical need, thirst. She was thirsty. Her household had need of water, right? So she would come out in the middle of the day because she was shamed and rejected by her society, her culture. So she would come alone, right? And she would draw water from the well. She didn't have the support of her friends like all the others did that came in the morning. She was alone. But notice when Jesus met her in the heat of the day, alone, carrying not only the burdens of the pitchers, the weight of that physically, but the weight of a failed and rejected and shameful life. I love it. God is so intelligent. If you just take 5 seconds to look and listen to what He says and what He pinned down and the stories He tells, it will blow your mind. The depth of it. And I don't even understand the depth of it. And I can spend hours looking at one story and still just be blown away. And Jesus meets her in this moment. Now notice she's isolated. She has no friends. She's rejected, right? And who does He come to? Who does He come to? Who does our Jesus go to? When He comes on the scene, I'm not even preaching about this. It's not even in my notes, but you need to understand it. Okay, Jesus, up until this point, He was hidden. You're gonna hear me say this again when we talk about the woman at the Samaritan well. But we're not there yet. So this is a sneak peek. Up until this point, he comes, so when He comes out of the wilderness, He starts to gather followers. He's starting to teach. He's starting to become public, but He's not done a whole lot just yet. A few miracles have happened, but He keeps telling people, hey, don't tell anyone about me, right? But then He comes to the woman at the well, the Samaritan, the outcast. God's people hated these people. His own disciples didn't want to go there. They couldn't understand, like, what is going on in your head, Jesus? Why would you want to go through Samaria? And Jesus said, well, just trust me. Trust me. He gets there and He meets this woman that not only is a Samaritan who's outcast by God's people, she's outcast in her own people. Right? She comes alone in the heat of the day. She's carrying all the burdens, blah, blah, blah. You've heard me say all that. And then guess what He does? There is this massive earth-shattering shift that happens in this moment. He tells her, go and tell everyone. Words He had not yet spoken. And that was the beginning of His public ministry. So many people point back to Cana. Not really. And I know I said that was His first miracle, right? But even that one He hid. He tried to keep it hidden. The only people that knew were Jesus and Mary and His disciples that we know of. But this time He says, go and tell everybody. And He spends some time in Samaria and many people get saved. Many lives changed, right? But notice how He did it. He went to the outcasts in a dry place, someone who was walking in the wilderness of life, and He met her in the wilderness. And I say all that to say this: God is going to show up more times than not in your life in the most tangible, real way possible, the way that you crave. The way that when you hear people like me and other preachers and other teachers and other people that walk with God, and they tell, all of a sudden you'll hear them tell a story of how they met God and the presence of God came down upon them and there was something supernatural that happened in their life. And you hear someone say a story like that and you're like, oh, I want that so much. Guess where it happens? Guess where it happens? In the wilderness. More times than not. Where did Moses' burning bush experience happen? By himself, as a shepherd, the lowliest of occupations. Nobody around him. It's for real. It's over and over and over and over again. You say, so how do I meet God? How do I get deeper with God? When he takes you by the hand and he says, here's hard times. Don't run away. Don't jerk away. Don't try to escape. Don't try to pray your way out of it. Instead say, Father, not my will, but thine be done. Greatest words ever spoken. Some of the greatest words ever spoken by Jesus himself in the Garden of Gethsemane. When he said, if it is at all possible, Father, for what's about to happen to pass from me, nevertheless, I will walk into that valley with you. That needs to be your prayer. It needs to be my prayer. In the wilderness, there is no illusion of self-sufficiency. God strips it away. You will all of a sudden realize you are not enough. You have never been enough. You do not measure up. You cannot make it on your own. No matter what amount of blood, sweat, and tears you put into it, you will fail. And the wilderness is all about getting you and me to come to the realization that on your own, you are in fact not enough. You are in fact a failure. On your own. Now, what does that mean for us? Because here's the problem. How many of you are Americans? Proud of it, right? Only in America. We bleed, what's the colors? Red, white, and blue, right? Right now, my refrigerator is full. Some of it's expired. Probably needs cleaned out. But it's full, right? My home is full of stuff. Man, we just went through Christmas. Like nuts, right? We got toys in my home right now that my kids played with on Christmas Day and have never played with since, right? Anyone else can relate to that? I might have some toys like that. My house is full. I'm actually, my life is pretty comfortable. I drive pretty nice vehicle. I love it. It's got leather color in the inside. It's I tell my wife I bought it for her, but man, I tell you, I like it. So how do we as Americans who live in such great, unparalleled in human history abundance? Let me tell you something that maybe you don't know. You live today like the kings of old used to live, and in many ways better. I said you and I. We are so blessed and blind to our blessings, it's not even funny, right? And I say, who are you talking to? America, the Western world. That's who I'm talking to, right? So here's a fair question, right? Can we even go into the wilderness? Is that even possible for us? So here's the thing about God. He has a way of doing it. He has a way of taking all of these super wealthy, man, I know it's offensive. Please, to me too. I don't mean it too harshly, but spoiled, rotten American Christians, okay? Because we just don't know. And God's not like up in heaven beating us with a stick saying, you ought to know. He gets it. He knows the culture we grew up in. He knows that. But he also knows what it's done to us, how it's numbed us, how it's given us this facade. And God says, all right, well, I love you. I'm not going to take it all away. But what he will do is he'll find the one thing that props you up. It might be your title, might be your bank account, it might be your retirement portfolio, it might be your social status, it might be your social media following, it might be your appearance, it might be the way that you view yourself. You might feel like you're very successful, a self-built entrepreneurial type of person, right? And God will take that thing that you don't even know it, you don't even realize it, but it is the God of your life. And he'll knock it down flat on its face. In your abundance, he doesn't have to take everything from you. He just has to take your God from you and me. For some men, it's lust. For some men, it's deception in women. And God says, you know what? Let's just strip away the illusion of this thing in your life that's lording over you that you think is sustaining you. And God will not always remove all of your possessions. Instead, he will remove the one thing that makes you feel strong, that makes you feel valuable. Now that could be a health problem. It could be the loss of a title or job. As I said, assets that suddenly become worthless. It could be a struggle or a problem that you don't have an answer for. And you're the answer person. You always have the answer. You always have the solution. You always have the strategy to get out of this pit that we're in, right? To get over this hurdle. But all of a sudden, you've come to the end of yourself. And God, our loving Father, has a way of bringing his children, even in America, in the 21st century, in abundance, to their knees for their good. And what happens then is momentum slows in your life. Recognition all of a sudden fades. Emotional energy dries up. The routine of your life gets disrupted, and suddenly you realize how much of your peace was built on things that God says that was never meant to carry you. Now I want to show you the next verse here. Deuteronomy 8, chapter 3. Look at this. It says, yes, He is God, humbled you. Look at the next words. By letting you go hungry. By letting you go hungry. God let them get to a point to where they were hungry. The pain of hunger, they felt it, right? And then, but what did he do? Then he fed them, right? Then feeding you with manna, a food that was previously unknown to you. God says, hey, I'm going to strip away the thing that you're comfortable with, that everyone else is very comfortable with. I'm going to take it from you. I need it I need to remove it out of your life. But then and only then are you going to find the thing that is unknown to everybody else. The real, tangible, felt, known presence of God in your life. Even for the Israelites, God said, I need to take away the thing that makes you feel so comfortable, because until you learn to live until you learn to live without that, you will never be drawn to learn to live off of me. You see, in times of comfort and abundance, it's hard for us to see ourselves for who we really are. And isn't that what humility is? Humility is the ability for you to finally see yourself for who you really are. The good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And in the midst of all your blessings. I think it's actually very hard. I know this to be true in my own life. It's very hard, and you can decide for yourself if it's true. It's very hard to see yourself for who you really are when you are super blessed. Because you define yourself by your blessings. Your value is propped up by your blessings. Me too. Me too. Will anything in our life that shames us, that we're embarrassed about, we don't talk about that, we don't deal with that, we certainly don't bring it up in public, but anything else, be more than happy to talk about it, right? I would argue that it's actually very hard to see God. You know, I've said this before, blessings have a way of building walls. And the more you look at the blessings, all of a sudden those walls get so tall, you literally can't see anything else. So what God does, He said, I'm not going to take all the blessings out. I love you. I gave them to you. But what I am going to do, because you prayed last night. You went to your prayer closet last night in private and you said to me, God, I want to know you. God, where are you at in my life? God, I want to see you. God, I want to hear your voice. Remember when you prayed that? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come right down here to the corner of the wall at the very bottom. And I'm going to pull out one thing that all this other stuff has been built on for years. Because I want to answer that prayer. I want you to see me too. But in your current state, you can't. In the wilderness, you will start to feel your need for God in a way like you have never felt before. The need for God. If you've not reached a point in your life where you truly, desperately, the cry of your soul, where you've even been brought to tears, and the tears are not absolutely necessary, but they're certainly a manifestation of sincerity. But where you have been brought to tears and you're just like, God, I don't even care. I don't even care about the rest of life. I don't care about nothing. I just need you. If you haven't ever been there, then you don't know what I'm talking about right now. And probably the reason you don't know what I'm talking about right now is because you've run away from every wilderness in your life. You say, I haven't run away from anything. I've worked hard. Built yourself right out of it, didn't you? Figured out a way to get out of it. I know, I know it's hard to hear. I know. But this theme is not just something I'm pulling out of one spot in the Bible. The Bible is full of it. Anybody that ever had a close, intimate, amazing walk with God, anybody that ever did anything great for the kingdom of God in this book went through wildernesses. Plural. That's not even a real word. The many wildernesses. Yeah, it is. Yeah. In their life. And they learned to be content. What did Paul say? No matter what state I'm in. If I'm in a life of abundance, if I'm one of the wealthiest people on the planet, bless God, I'll lift up thanks to Him. I'll be content. But if I'm in the desert, if I'm starving to death, I will also lift up a word of thanks towards my God, and I will be content. Because in those places, I know that all things work together for the good of those who are called according to Christ Jesus. Right? These are the words of Paul. He knew. He understood. He also went through the wilderness. He was literally blinded. God took away his sight. I can't. So Paul's whole life was built on one thing. The law. Observing the law. what he could see with his eyes. He was a Pharisee, did you know? One of the chiefest of Pharisees. One of the most famous, if not the most famous, Pharisee of his time. And he would go in and drag Christian women and children and men out and murder them. This is what he would do. Because they were not obeying the laws of God. Look, I got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the Pentateuch, right? I can see the law of God. And he enforced it with with more passion than I think anyone's ever enforced anything in their life. He equaled it. So God said, I got to take something from you. So what did he do? He shows up on the road to Damascus. Paul literally sees, I want to say, the face of God. The problem was he was so bright that Paul could actually see his face. The brightness of God blinded him and took away his sight. Do you realize that Paul needed one thing? That's it. One thing, his whole life, to learn the Pentateuch. His eyes. And God said, I'm just going to come down here on the corner and I'm going to pull out the one thing that you've built all this on. And then Paul goes off into isolation for a while. The wilderness. You see it time and time and time and time again. When everything is working, you never look at the foundation. Only Max. He's an engineer. He'll look at the foundation. But the rest of us, we don't go look at, when's the last time you were in your basement just looking at the walls? I know, some of us men, we go in, we're proud of our foundation walls, The women, they're looking at the inside. We're looking down. Let me take you to my basement and show you the concrete. This is 8 inches thick, What actually happens, though, for most people, is they don't realize they have it, right, Max? They don't realize they have a foundation problem until something in the wall starts cracking, right? All of a sudden, I can see this stuff that I'm so proud of, right? It's cracked. What's going on? Someone comes in and says, oh yeah, your foundation's settling here. It's wrecking your house. You got to get this fixed. God is that guy. He is that guy. He comes in and says, yeah, you got a real problem there that everyone that comes into your house sees it too. But that's not actually the problem. It's down here at the foundation. When your life starts to thin out, you start to see what you were really leaning on the whole time and how unstable that was. You discover whether it was God sustaining you or something else. You discover whether it was really His presence or whether it was just routine in your life holding you up. The wilderness forces you to ask this very important question in your life. If everything else were stripped away from me today, like Job, if God took my children, if God took all my houses, if God took all of my wealth, if God took my social status, that all got stripped away from Job, in a day. His friends came and said, what did you do wrong, dude? You must have great sin in your life. If God stripped all of it away today, could you seriously and sincerely, in all honesty, lift your hands and eyes to Him in the aftermath of the wreckage and say, God, you're enough? And the truth is, all of us would struggle, I think, if we're being honest, to say, yeah, God, you're enough. Let's pray. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this message. Again, I have to thank you for how convicting it is, because it is. It's so convicting. I don't know, heads bowed and eyes closed, if you're like me, doesn't it just cut right through you? It's just, you see it, you see what God does, you see how the Father works, how He loves. And it just shakes you. It shakes you to your core. It makes you question everything in your life. It makes you question, do I really love God? Am I really committed to Him? I know the words I say, and I know that, I go to church and I read my Bible and I do the things, but man, a message like that, you hear that and it just shakes you and it makes you think, how committed am I really? I mean, if they came and arrested me today and they put me on the stake and they said, we're going to light the match, buddy, do you follow God or not? What would I say then? Oh man, what if they did it to your wife? What if they did it to your children? What if they did it to your grandchildren? What would you say then? If your faith was put to the ultimate test?